Cookie did it. I know, spoiler-free show and all, but I don't fucking care! Don't trust Cookie! He's got those shifty dot eyes. Frickin' YouTube drama! As a content provider, I am so sick of it! It makes me pine for the days of yore, when I was a mere lad of 13, at home with my giant 30-pound VHS camcorder.
That was such an innocent time, a carefree time, while other kids were playing sports or learning how to better themselves. Pshaw! I was out in the backyard creating stories to amuse my friends as well as myself. Most times I would appear on camera, playing frantic, nonsensical characters. But many times still, I would be present behind the lens, posing my characters a little bit at a time. Stop-action movies, for some people, may have seemed like a boring waste of time, but for me, it was a fun way to blow a day away. One of my subjects was Guffy, a yellow blob of clay who went on adventures with his pals Chess Horse, Pickle, and Glop. He would visit other worlds inside books and magazines. Check this out, where Guffy goes into a wrestling magazine and interacts with ravishing Rick Rude and Dusty Rhodes, who happens to communicate with his own stomach.
Hey boys and girls, wouldn't it be great for me to do a wrestling-themed cartoon Limbo?
I think it pretty obvious. The inspiration for Guffy was a little green guy from the 1950s, a cartoon character oft forgotten in the pantheon of all-time greats. It's none other than Gumby! I was a huge fan of Gumby back in the early 80s. The only way to see it was to rent it from mom-and-pop video rental stores, and boy did those VHS covers stick out amongst the crowd. You were instantly drawn to it. I was overjoyed a few years later when WNEW Channel 5 decided to run these in syndication. I felt as if me renting those videotapes as often as I did played a hand in it. Needless to say, I never missed an episode, taped every one, and wore those old Fuji videotapes the hell out. Over the years, Gumby would come and go. There was a brief stint in the late 80s, early 90s where they rebroadcast the old episodes with revamped sound, as well as some crispy new adventures, and eventually, a movie, which got a light theater release.
It's so strange that I had to wait until now to get my hands on this, the first edition Gumby Adventures DVD set, finally available in its original form after all these years. And look, it comes with a free Gumby. Maybe I should take out the old camcorder and make some stop-action movies with this guy, huh?
Hi, everybody!
Oh, Guffy! You're alive! Where have you been? What the hell have you been doing for the last 28 years?
And I can't believe that you're still doing this!
I'll have you know I plan on retiring very soon.
Yeah, right! You said that back in 2010!
Nice to see you're paying attention. To what do I owe this little interruption?
You can't do a review on Gumby without me! I was created in the man's image! I'm the authority on Gumby!
Well then, why not do the plot overview if you know so much?
Step aside and let a master show you how it's done!
Why are you getting so hot on me, man?
Gumby was created by Art Clokey in the mid-1950s, the son of parents Gumba and Gumbo. His adventures are miniaturized within a human-sized playroom, where he interacts with now-antique toys and gizmos. Though confined, Gumby has unlimited universes in which to explore. He has the ability to step into any book on the shelf and act out the often perilous adventures on its pages as if it were real life. Tagging along is his best friend Pokey, a red pony whom he rescued from homelessness and since hit it off with. The typical Gumby episode would run about a half hour with commercials, consisting of 3 self-contained shorts. Whether he was playing the role of the clueless child running headlong into danger, or the smart aleck who could solve your dilemma, Gumby and his adventures were rip-roaring fun for all ages. How was that?
Great, just great. It's like you were speaking with my voice and my writing or something. Wasn't annoying at all.
I apologize in advance if this review seems a bit scatterbrained, but it's really tough to judge this show. You see, we're dealing with various eras of Gumby, and even in this early phase alone, we watch the character go through some growing pains. My favorite Gumby of all time is the one we get right out of the gate. That's when the gimmick was fresh and new, and the show had the tendency to throw plot out the window and just get down and dirty playing with clay. The show was extremely rough around the edges, kind of filthy, and riddled with mistakes. Everywhere the characters walk, you see little smears on the floor. What's wrong with Gumby's crotch? It's talking! But watch how Gumby's eye flies off his face here.
I was on the moon!
I was on the moon! And with today's technology, you could probably use this show to access all of Art Clokey's personal information, since his fingerprints are literally all over this thing.
But just because I cite these as observations, I don't consider these problems. In fact, it's the show's roughness that kinda turns me on to it.
You can see just how much the animator is enjoying getting his hands dirty. For those first 10 or so episodes, you can notice the freedom of expression through moving clay. Gumby himself was way more malleable, and changed shape way more often. I even prefer the characterization of old. Gumby, as a character, was a naive child, who routinely disobeyed his parents and got into heaps of trouble because of it. He was a very fallible character, and his episodes were more cautionary tales on what not to do, in a Curious George kind of fashion. They even gave the character a weakness! He was extremely prone to cold, and he'd have to take his gumbometer out with him everywhere he went to monitor his temperature. If his body temp went too cold, the green guy went stiff. I loved the gumbometer! Why did they ever get rid of that? His voice was distinctively more female than male. And not just any female, but an echoey, loud baritone female.
We come to ask you to free the dragon from your magic spell.
Such a weird choice for the voice of your main character. But then again, the character of Gumby is weird in itself, so it fits. What is Gumby exactly? What the flying frick-a-frack is that shape? What's with the enormous dent in his head? Isn't it all the more perfect this anomaly of a character be a gender bender to boot?
Hey Guffy, what is the deal with the shape of your head anyway?
This? It's self-inflicted.
You did that to yourself?
Yeah! In the clay world, it's the style to be asymmetrical.
I see, and you...
Bashed my head in.
Oh dear.
With a hammer, every day, until it was permanent.
Your life is a horror!
As for Pokey, he didn't enter the picture until 3 episodes in, and he was way more a horse than a best friend. He'd even neigh like a horse, which he didn't do in the later episodes. As the show matured, it became more polished. In latter episodes, you can clearly see it in the backgrounds, the props, the characters, even the quality of the film itself. There was just more money behind this. With that money, I'm assuming Mr. Clokey created a mold of Gumby, because he looks like he jumped right out of a cookie cutter. His edges are more clean and sharp. His mouth moves to the vocals a lot better. Gone is the strange female voice in favor of a classic cartoon delivery a la Bugs Bunny. And I don't know if this was intentional, maybe Clokey meant for the audience to grow up alongside Gumby or something, but the character had matured a great deal. No longer a dumb green lemming running headfirst into danger. This new Gumby was slick. He was charismatic, a born leader. If you had a problem, you'd go to Gumby, because he's got all the answers. I find the older Gumby gets, the more I learn to dislike him. The plots became, well, just that, plots. There was way more concentration on character and story, and less of that chaos, which, to me, is what set Gumby apart from your typical cartoon. This is a classic example of a character progressing to mediocrity, following the gold standard, becoming a slave to marketing. Yawn. Why would anyone want to follow a character who has no faults? Where's the fun in that? I really do hate this stereotypical lead character. Sonic the Hedgehog, Rude Dog, Cooler, Riff Raff, they're all the same character. They're all the same character! And I'm sick of it! Now, thankfully, this early era of Gumby only shows the beginning signs of this annoyance, so I will not take any points off for this change. I merely pointed out because in the later eras of Gumby, he would become this character full bore. How fitting that Gumby now looks like he came out a cookie cutter, because in the later eras, he is just that.
In every episode of Cartoon Limbo, I hold in high regard the animation quality itself. Here, I feel as if I'm facing a challenge. I feel like I could talk about this animation for hours. How does one summarize?
The animation is, without a shadow of a doubt, the main reason to watch in the first place. You look at the series pilot, Gumby Show, which is all about the art and animation. You watch it and you can see, in all its experimentation and its movement, the animator was excited doing this, as if they've just discovered a new medium in which to tell stories. What you are watching here is something so very rare. Gumby Show is literally an animation orgasm. An animation orgasm! I think the animation quality in Gumby goes without saying. This show is all about the animation, how malleable Gumby is, the way in which he can stretch and change forms, the way he can walk into books. That's all his character. I did notice in the early episodes he shuffled along to get around. Eventually he would adapt a slide maneuver. I'm guessing it was a pain in the ass to make the character physically walk, so they gave him this. In fact, I know from experience, it is a pain in the ass! But the show also uses basic puppetry and, well, gravity itself to convey that motion. Now you'd think just dropping a stiff clay figure from off camera would look amateur and cheap, but I for one think it looks great and flows perfectly. I particularly love this section from the Mirrorland episode, where all the towers are falling, or would that be rising? This is like a minute stretch with no animation to speak of, but it looks and feels awesome. Just the sheer madness of it. And how about this section with the rocking horse? It's Gumby's birthday, and his parents told him he could have any toy he wants. He's giving this a try, and needless to say, he's having regrets. They really sell you the fear. I also like what they do with water. When characters get wet or when they sweat, the animation will pause as the droplets run down, making a fun and realistic effect. And a few episodes feature this toy train. Look how it moves and how the track just appears underneath it. That's pretty clever stuff. As I said, Gumby himself lives in his own miniaturized world within a human playroom, so a lot of the backgrounds you're gonna see are just shelves of antique toys. And there is a certain enjoyment there to see all these playthings of yesteryear. Makes me wonder how they acquired the rights to use all this stuff instead of creating their own props. Simpler times, I guess. When Gumby ventures out the toy box, usually into a world within a storybook, the backgrounds are absolutely tremendous. They immerse you in a gigantic, believable world, and they do it on the smallest budget.
Hey, how come I never got cool backgrounds like that?
Because as a child I was dirt poor and I had no patience?
I suspected as much.
The best way to put it, these backgrounds are kinda like dioramas a child could create, if he had the patience for it. Look at this jungle! How simple the trees are! The backgrounds look like they were created in a second grade art class with cray paws. But, with all the different elements in the foreground, those simple drawings make this jungle look endlessly dark and dense. Simple, yet effective. Of course, it's not all simple. This episode, The Racing Game, has this great front camera angle during the race, which really sells the action and shows the depth of those handmade backgrounds. Even the very first episode had Gumby playing around on the moon, an amazing set piece when you step back to appreciate it.
I do have a criticism though, perhaps the weirdest criticism I have ever given. You see, sometimes the animator gets so immersed in this unique medium, so absorbed in this world he has created. Sometimes I think he gets a little carried away.
There are so many moments in these episodes, so many specific shots that just drag on and on. This is the same reason why I hated the feces out of 2001: A Space Odyssey. So many moments where you're just staring at something and you have to second guess what you're seeing. Why is this happening? Why am I looking at this? Why is this important? Sometimes they get so caught up in the animation, they forget they're supposed to be telling a story! Take this scene! Oh, this scene! The scene where Gumby ends up at the hospital after nearly freezing to death. Yeah, the backgrounds, the little makeshift instruments, they're really cool and inventive and all, but why is this scene like 48 minutes long? I hated this as a kid, and I hate it just as much now. Electricity, Dial spins. Pull a lever. Head nod. 48 freaking minutes! And why are they smiling? Your son is in an iron lung! Damn you! Terrible parents! And there are so many still frames and slow pans of the toy room. Am I supposed to be in awe of Art Clokey's toy collection? This is like one of the earliest examples of a collector video, like the kind you see on YouTube.
We got crunch. Here's a crunch. Here's a crumb. Here's a crumb. Here's a crumb.
What the fuck am I doing with my life?
Here's a crumb.
What definitely helps matters is the soundtrack, which I believe is what kept this DVD set in development limbo for all these years. I'm assuming this is old copyrighted music which just became public domain or something.
Take cover, Pokey.
Now where have I heard that music before? Oh yeah!
For a while, if you wanted to watch old episodes of Gumby, you had to watch those god-awful redubs with putrid MIDI Casio keyboard background music. Whenever I hear that music, I think of chickens for some reason. The music is very important here. I would swear this was created for the show, as it scores beautifully what is happening on screen, and rarely do you hear a song repeat. Listen to the music here. Doesn't that convey a mood? Like the dog is saying, "Ooh, someone's here? Yeah, someone's here to play with me! Wait! Don't go! Oh." I love the music of Gumby. It's so atmospheric and retro, akin to an old show from the 50s like Leave It to Beaver or Lassie. And when Gumby and Pokey are standing side by side, eyeing shelf after shelf of Clokey's collected knickknacks, yeah, it's a bunch of old junk, but that music, do you not feel the same sense of awe and wonderment? I kinda do. So, alright, Mr. Clokey, I guess your toy collection is pretty kick-ass.
As for the plot, it was never Gumby's strong suit.
When this show was televised, it was done in the style of a Warner Brothers cartoon. It told 3 little stories in 1/2 hour, and Gumby, unlike Bugs and Daffy, is aimed towards young kids. So really, how deep a story are you really gonna tell in that time? The early episodes, the foolhardy young Gumby was almost drawn to dangerous situations, and you, the young viewer, learned through his eyes what not to do, and how you should behave. Always obey your parents, don't run away from home, always return lost items, that kind of stuff. The later Gumby episodes were short, simple tales with morals at the end. And when I say simple, I mean simple. And yes, the stories are light, but that doesn't hold true to the storytelling. In such a short time, the adventures of Gumby are pretty engrossing. In Mirrorland, Gumby loses a quarter in a mirror and tries to get it back. Simple, right? But all the odd twists and turns, the bizarre imagery, the zany characters, make this trip epic and worthwhile. The Magic Wand. A magician leaves his wand at Gumby's lemonade stand, and Gumby ventures into Magic Land to give it back. Magic Land. That is so uncreative and stupid. But look at the fun that ensues. It really is satisfying. Plus, there's a tiny little subplot involving Gumby's mother's new picture that wraps up nicely in the end. But nothing compares to this episode, In the Dough. Up to now, we've been strictly looking at kids' stuff. This episode is the thing nightmares are made of. It starts out all cute and innocent. Gumby, after failing to make jelly rolls for his parents, follows a cute little blob of dough into the oven to learn how to bake. But as Gumby and Pokey venture onward, it becomes clear as crystal that this little guy may have sinister motives. He keeps saying cryptic things like, "We have to hurry before the door closes!" Or, "We mustn't be too late!" Too late for what? Pokey nearly dies at one point, and this bastard doesn't have one shred of compassion. And the part where he rises, look how scary this is.
In this room, we rise like this.
This episode will forever be my favorite just because of that uneasy feeling it gives. It's quite shocking from a camp that would eventually bring us the overly religious Davy and Goliath. Hey, if Davy and Goliath is for God worshippers, does that mean that Gumby is for Satan worshippers?
Keep you off of my world. I never want to see you again.
Some of the best episodes, though, are the ones with no plot whatsoever. The ones which are sheer bedlam for sheer bedlam's sake. I love this section here, where Gumby is just trying to get from point A to point B, and for no reason this construction worker starts fucking with him. This guy is such a lovable dick. I don't need an explanation for said dickery, I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy him. On top of everything else, I find this show to be hilarious, oftentimes for the wrong reasons. I don't throw this particular compliment around too much, but I would imagine this to be a hysterical show to watch while drunk. This show is chock full of laughs, and 90% of them are unintentional.
Hold up. You see that? Rewind. And ready, and pause. Whoops. No, I got a good one. Check this one out. Now whose hand is that? How does that get through? Hey, you ever hear about the monkey ear thing? No? Give me the rope. Now pay attention. Beginning of the episode, right here. Here's the monkey. You see? Remember what the monkey looks like? Now fast forward. What's with the ears? Look at what he looks like. All right. Give me. Now watch. We're just gonna jump to any random spot.
And the MVP of it all is Farmer Glenn, Pokey's portly orange father. I laughed so hard when I hereard this.
Here's your reward. 100 ice cream cones.
But I only...
It's all right, Sonny. I want you to have them. Here, before they melt.
Before they melt. He's gonna make him eat 100 ice cream cones in one sitting, quickly, while he awkwardly stands there holding them the whole while. Some reward!
As you know by now, I digested a lot of this show as a youngster, and I know these episodes forward and backward. So how complete is this DVD compilation?
Well, if your Gumby is the David and Goliath style Gumby, then you're shit out of luck. He doesn't make it here. But I was also surprised how many earlier episodes didn't make the cut. Gumby, as a show, is kind of a rare bird. I'm gonna be doing a lot of guessing here, but I assume when this show was produced, it was by the seat of its own pants. Freewheeling, no boundaries.
Biodigital jazz, man.
Yeah, that's right! They started at the beginning, like you typically do, and they started telling the story until there was no story left to tell. However much time that took was all arbitrary. Some wrapped up quicker than others. So when it came time to allot all these non-time-stamped episodes into solid half-hour blocks, obviously it was a problem. They had to make major cuts for every episode to be of equal length, and the footage which ended up on the cutting room floor would be featured in alternate episodes. Out of context, these episodes made little sense, usually just throwing the viewer in the middle of situations without explaining diddly dick. But it made use of this footage which otherwise would have been a total wash. These companion piece episodes do not make it on the set, which is a bummer. There is also some last-minute editing, minor fades and stuff like that, which actually interrupt the characters mid-animation. That sucks extra hard for the Gumby historian, because every frame is crucial to us.
I just called myself a Gumby historian. I want to die.
It says there is a rarely seen series pilot, without sound. No, I remember this. Not only did this air, but you bet your Bibby Bobka it had sound at the time. Why is it not here? I don't know.
So now I have the unenviable task of grading this clay spectacle. Is this a work of art, or a lump of poop fresh out a baby's anus right after you ate a can of Play-Doh? Sorry, Guffy, I hope that wasn't too offensive. Gumby gets! Four and a half stars! This is a work of art, friends, and Gumby does not get the credit it richly deserves.
Certain things get better with age, but Gumby is one of those rare things which peaked the second he burst past the starting line. The newer episodes follow the style of Clokey's other hit series, Davy and Goliath. The characters have a sheen over them. Everything's been cleaned up. There is heavy emphasis on plot. There's lots of talking. There's almost no creative implementation of the clay. In other words, it's sterile. I still enjoy choice episodes here and there, but the fun and the charm of the original is largely gone. This felt like a show you wanted to crowd your whole 50s era family in front of the old-fashioned wooden picture tube TV set and watch. And screw that! The original Gumby was anarchy! A boundless world without rules. A world not bogged down by characters and plots, but an open world free to explore at a leisurely pace. And with all those rules out the window, this classic show compensates with fun and creativity up the wazoo. It was a show that got down and dirty with the uniqueness of its medium. A show so self-aware and almost indulging in how much it stuck out in the crowd. This was, and in many ways still is, something so refreshingly different. Things like characterization, story arcs, relationships, they're all tertiary. It's just a feast for the eyes. How does this not make you want to go to Toys R Us right now, pick up some Play-Doh, and make your own clay animations? This show is a triumph, and while this DVD set isn't perfect, it's pretty close, and it comes highly recommended.
Now, of course, this is not where Gumby's story ends. We've only scratched the surface. If you like Volume 1 of the Gumby Adventures, there exists a Volume 2, which will get a little bit into that Davy and Goliath style. Plus, it has a lot of precursor character episodes which even I, the super fan, had forgotten about. And it comes with a free Pokey! So that about does it for this episode of Cartoon Limbo. This is your good buddy Djclyve.
And I'm Guffy.
Hey Guffy, why don't you try going into this book next? Oh dear God! Why are there bones? This doesn't make sense. And organs? Oh man. Alright, DJ, just don't dwell on it. You just took a life, but it's not that big a deal. Just something I'll have to try and keep in mind next time I have to share the screen with pint-sized co-hosts.
Hi, everybody!